Hey, Mudflop's back with another video. This time it's going to be part 2 of the Phase 3 loot guide. We're going to start with a noob, go into the tribute chest, touch on some of the 10 main items that are kind of interesting, as well as Zone 25. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, I highly suggest doing so. It has some of the foundational reasons and thoughts behind what we're doing when we distribute loot, and it can be very, very helpful. Without further ado, let's jump into the first boss, Anub'Arak. Maiden's Favor. It's draped with the Sullen Goddess, plus 6 eye levels. So if anybody got really unlucky with the Freya Cloak, boom. Get them up to speed with this. If they all have it already, equal Prio. I know that eventually they're all going to be looking for the 272. We'll get to that eventually in the video. Strength of the Nerub, a nice strength cloak. I would go in Holy here. And I have more reasonings behind this, but it kind of veers off into the 272 cloak, which we will get to near the end. Armbands of the Ashen Saint. So, Shadow, Holy, Af, Demo, all want this because, you know, haste, they love it. Now, if anybody is missing Grasps of Reason, boom. Same theme, right? Going through all of these. Give to them first. If all equal, you could go Demo first because it'll always give just slightly more to give to somebody that benefits the entire raid than it does for just one person. Gloves of the Lifeless Touch. Now, these are very interesting because there is an argument between the Shadow Priests who want Pharaohs. They could use these. These are just slightly worse, but their ultimate bis is Pharaohs. So if you're killing a noob on Heroic, you're able to kill Algalon, right? So keep them, Prio and Pharaohs. And then Holy Paladins want these or Pharaohs, but I think there's an argument that these are slightly better because Int outweighs the secondary stats. And that's where you could split these up. You say Shadow Priests go for Pharaohs, Holy Paladins go for these, and then if one is dropping way more than the other, you can supplement as needed. But that's probably a good route to go with this. These are not desired by DPS over Pharaohs in any sim that I saw. Leggings of the Deepening Void, kind of a weird item because all that hit. Now, a lot of times you can move around hit pieces for secondary bis setups, and then these on face value, they look really strong. That's a lot of stats, but unfortunately, I couldn't find a sim of a secondary setup where this wasn't a triple-digit loss for anybody except Fire Mage, and even then, it was a significant loss over what their true bis was. So this is not going to be one that is going to be sought after. It can be a decent holdover, but it's a lot of hit. It's going to require a lot of working things around until they get Skyreave robes. Foot Bads of the Icy Flow. So if you followed from part 1, I say these should go to Boomkins first because these are completely uncontested. And this with the Court of Thorns, boom. They've got 258 items and they're set. They're doing excellent. Now, after they have it, there are many secondary bis setups that have this in it for casters. And if that's the case, if people want to vie for this in the meantime because they know, oh, those other boots, the line is crazy, absolutely talk with them about that and divvy up loot efficiently. Bracers of Dark Determination. Okay, Feral now wants Solar Bindings as this phase bis, so they don't want these. So this is just combat and assassination. Now, as I talked about with Belt of the Merciless Killer, if you're dropping a bunch of expertise from the last phase, this is really hard for assassination. You have to gem expertise to get back where you're supposed to be. And so you could argue that it'd be easier to give these to combat, but I would do equal Prio and just see who could use it in the moment without having to destroy their gear setup. Leg Wraps of the Awakening. Boomkin Prio. Boom. And then after that, the Shamans want this, right? So Boomkins, then Ellie and Resto, easy enough. Chest Guard of Flowing Elements, absolute trash. Belt of Deathly Dominion, congrats Hunters. Leggers of the Lurking Threat, congrats Hunters again, what the hell? Gloves of Bitter Reprisal, okay, now we have amazingly statted for Fury and Frost. It's their off piece. I would do equal prio. You could argue Fury slightly more if you wanted to do a tiebreaker, but you know, each guild's different. They both will really like this piece. Belt of the Forgotten Mortar. This is worse than the Algalon belt for Pallies. It's okay. Greaves of the 7th Legion. Okay, now we're talking Ret and Fury. Expertise piece. Minor upgrade for both, but still part of their True Biz setup. Equal prio. And again, we'll get to trophies near the end here. Band of Deplorable Violence. All right, I'm about to make a bunch of people mad on the next handful of items, because these are like the most dramatic items coming up. So it's the Bis Ring for almost all the casters and even some of the healers like Disc Priest. Now here's the thing, if you're coming into the phase without some of your Bis Rings, which most people are because there weren't that many to choose from in the last phase, everyone wanted the same things. Good luck getting that many conductive seals and whatever else nebula bands that you needed. So luckily for now, nebula band can be just bought with the Sidereal Essence. Makes it way easier. That's awesome. So if someone's missing conductive seal or something, you can big upgrade for them, easy enough. Now, if everyone's sitting in the similar situation, who's getting the most after that? Well, you can always give to Demo. They're going to give the most to the raid. And then after that, the biggest upgrade per person, surprisingly, Shadow Priest. Af and Boomkin gained almost nothing in all the sims that we did from this. It is technically their Bis, just barely. So something to consider, maybe after Demo you do Shadow Priest and Fire Mage, and then go down the line after that, because they are gaining virtually nothing. Signet of the Traitor King, tank item, easy enough. Reign of the Unliving. All right, I'm gonna need a drink for this. All right, just like Death's Verdict, we have to look at the past and look at the future. You can't look at things like this in a vacuum of just the phase you're in. If you see a loot guide that only looks at the phase you're in, doesn't look ahead, doesn't look in the past, they're setting you up for failure, because the game doesn't work like that. You don't live in a vacuum of one phase. So in the past phase, well, first let's set up the people that want this. Enhance, Shadow, Fire, Ellie, Boomkin. They all want this as their Bis. Well, who got Flare right off the bat in the last phase of the casters? Well, maybe we hold off on those guys, and maybe not class-wise, but just person-wise. All right, who got the big item off the last phase? And if you're enhanced, did you get Comet's Trail? Because that was the big item for all the Fizz, and you guys are kind of this weird hybrid. If people came from that phase without Flare or Comet's Trail, consider them very highly. But then let's add one more caveat here. What about the next phase? Who gains the most from the other most famous trinket of Wrath for casters? Phylactery. This, again, will be surprising. This is going to sound like I'm simping for Shadow Priest, but Shadow Priest, absolutely, Shadow Priest and Locke get so much out of Phylactery, and then Mage very close behind. And the others not as much from the sims we saw. So maybe you say, let's take Shadow Priest back. Let's put them as high prio on the big boy ICC trinket. And then we fill in here from the other classes we mentioned with who didn't get their Bis trinket from the last phase. That is the most diplomatic and efficient way, and it's going to strengthen your raid because, well, first off, if they didn't, they're going to get a huge upgrade out of this if they don't have the big items from the last phase. So they're going to make your raid stronger immediately, and you're going to be spreading the love in a way that makes sense, keeps people happy, makes the raid stronger. It's just a win-win all around, and you're thinking ahead and you're explaining things to what's to come, what's to look forward to, right? So you can't just keep giving the BIS trinkets or BIS weapons to the same people every phase first. That does not work. I mean, some guilds have that going. Maybe they're officers or something. They've got a lovely corrupt thing going. I haven't seen many of them work on our server. Guilds have died around us every phase for similar things. So, next item, Storm Pike Cleaver. Huge item, right? Combat, enhance, both DK specs. What are you going to do with this? Well, you again can look at eye level. Who's going to get the biggest upgrade maybe out of this? That's one consideration. And if you're going into other considerations, as far as I know, enhance would like this one more than this one. So if you can work them into this higher than this, I think they'll take that trade. Combat, this is basically their only option. Meanwhile, Unholy likes as the Remorseless one off the tribute chest as well. They have more things that they can do. So, how do you break this up beyond the eye level thing? Well, you could go down the route of who's getting the most out of this. So, the DKs oftentimes, even though they care about the weapon damage, they care about the stats on the weapons a lot, especially in Holy, more so than most people. The rogues care about the weapon damage more than the stats, right? Because they're doing less magic, more fizz than the DKs are. So you could make that argument for the axe. You give the combat, it's one axe and it's solved, it's done. And then you can give one out each to the DKs, something like that. That could work. The biggest thing I would consider is making sure you don't give like 2 to a Frost DK before everybody else even has 1. That doesn't make any sense. So just spread the love as best you can. And that's my best advice for how to divvy that up. Another one that's going to make me take a drink. All right, Misery's End. All right. Enhance wants it. Discipline wants it. Shadow Priest wants it. Boomkin wants it. Where are you going with this? Well, luckily we have 3 caster weapons this time. So there is a dagger. That is an option if it drops really fast. Some of the people can use both. I know they can't use the sword, so that one's right out. But let's say one of your guys is coming in without a 252 weapon. Easy enough. That's a big one right there. If you've just had no Constellus, no Star Shards, wow, easy solution. Start giving those out. But say everyone's got Constellus and Star Shard coming in. Everyone's on the same path. They've got all their bis. Well, Star Shard is better than Constellus, so maybe you give to the people with Constellus first as the bigger upgrade, right? And then you also you usually want to give to your DPS faster than you want to give to your heals because the impact is generally bigger that way. Unfortunately, sorry healers, but that is the way the game generally works. However, one consideration is that Disc is the one healer that's sitting there without an orange while all their healer buddies are waving around Valeniers in their face. Maybe that's a little bit of you're gonna throw them a bone here. So you can think about that as well. But luckily the line won't be crazy for this, which makes things way easier. It's not like Old War where there were 2 total weapons. There are 3. That one extra really does make a difference. I promise. Archon Glaive. This is Feral Bis before it's a Hunter stat stick. Easy enough. Now, the Tribute Chest. Let's get into it. So, we're going to talk about the Tribute Chest Regalia as well as the trophies. So, let's start with how they work real quick, just in case there's any confusion. The Regalia, when you get this, you get it as a token for the different specs, just like we do in the past, right? The trophies can go to anybody. They're not restricted like these are to Prot, Conk, etc. But these can immediately turn into 258 tier with nothing else. You get this, it turns into tier. The trophies require 45 to 75 badges each to turn them in. Now, the first week, this is going to be a cluster because no one's going to have enough badges to turn these in yet. They will hopefully get them as you go. Now, they've done the math on all this. If you do every heroic daily, every TOGC 25 and 10, Nixia 25 and 10, VOA 25 and 10, and you miss none of the dailies, after 3 weeks, on the final day of the third week, you will have just enough badges to get your 4-piece. That's if you don't get any luck in VOA, which we've seen is it's not very common to get luck that way. And then just the rare Regalia that you will get at max 4 of these a week. You will not have enough of these to pass out to everyone, even by the end of the phase, okay? So, if you miss 1 day of your daily heroic, it will take you into the 4th week of non-stop grind to get enough badges to get your trophies for 245 tier. This makes things really easy for loot councils, right? If you have people not doing 10-man, not doing daily heroics, they can't even make the gear. You can't give it to them. So they can put this, they can't prove that they have badges for the trophies to turn it in. Well, that's a fucking waste. I'm not giving it to that person. So if they can't prove that they have badges as the phases go on, if you see they're not doing 10 minutes, they're not doing the dailies, well, they're screwed. They're going to get it last by virtue of their own actions. So that helps everybody. The people who put the effort in will get the gear first. Works out perfectly, right? Now, for the Regalia, who gets the Regalia? You have to consider, I would say, getting 2 and 4-piece bonuses completed for people. I think that's the best route to divvy these up. Again, they've done the math for this. The phase, there's no way the phase is long enough that you will get enough of these to get everyone. These for everybody. It's just not going to happen. So these will be moderately rare. That's even if you get all 4 every week, which many guilds will not. So that is the way to consider how to do all of this tier stuff. It's very, very interesting. I would pass out the trophies in pairs. You have to naturally, intrinsically, you're going to spread it out because nobody is going to be able to farm badges to a point that they have twice as many as others if everyone's just doing the regular 10-mans and heroic dailies, right? Everyone's going to be in the same path. So you will organically spread it out pretty evenly. No one's getting 4-piece right away without these regalias. And these are really a way to equalize where people have been, where you can fill in, where if they're unlucky in other slots, you can get 4-piece slightly faster than them, but generally the love is going to be spread organically. So, on to the weapons. Silverwing Defender, tank bis, kind of. Their threat bis is remorseless, but this has to go to DPS first. This is still a great weapon for tanks in the meantime. And then remorseless is going to be something they eventually want. If you get a bunch of these, cool, you can get it to them. But until then, Unholy would like these in their bis setup. It's honestly really good for Frost still, and it's good for Enhance. Not part of their quote bis setup, but it's still good. It's still good. Blade of the Unbroken Covenant. Congrats, Fire Mages. This is yours. And then, if all the Fire Mages have it and you're having trouble with the dagger, start sending this to Locks. There is a secondary setup that is quite close to their bis setup, and this is part of it. Catastrophe. Congrats, Ret Paladins. BRK. Grats, Hunters. Then, Rogue Stat Stick. Clemency. This is awful. No, it really, really is. No joke. This is terrible. This will probably be DE'd. It's probably not even good for off specs. Yeah, maybe a catch-up item for alts later in. Same with Decimation, and this is slightly better than Clemency, but not much. It's a decent off-spec weapon for some people, and that's about it. More of the Regalias. And then finally, the Cloaks. Okay, so let's talk about how rare these are going to be. I'm not joking. My hot take, these will be like Valeniers. And I think you'll see more Valeniers than these, to be fair. Because think of the best guilds in the world. If you watched some of their streams, many were able to do the 50 attempt clear, but they put 20 tries in. And half the time they couldn't, and they were trying to do it. So let's just say you make one mistake that wipes. The weak is gone. The cloak is gone. One mistake, 1 DC from a tank, 1 DC from a healer that has an important job, 1 DC from a person who's kiting something important. I don't know, they have an important debuff on one of the fights. Easily, you can have a lag spike. I don't know, an add-on tells you the wrong thing in a moment. The ways to wipe are numerous. They're very easy ways to wipe. Just once. We're not saying, and wiping once is not a, like, great guilds wipe occasionally. Go look at logs. So these are going to be really rare. So think about that when we're talking about these. You can actually think of these like legendaries, kind of. But again, one of the other things I want to talk about is looking forward to what's coming. So, Varian's Furor in this phase, amazing for Ret and Frost decays. I would give it to them before Unholy, because in the next phase, Unholy has an insane cloak that is so much better for them than this. They can wait for that. Unless you get tons of these, then they can take this for now, but they should be last in line for this. Varisa's Dexterity. The Armor Pen classes. This is their BIS game. Fury Warrior, Feral Druid, Combat Rogue, MM Hunter, possibly Survival Hunter, okay? Assassination should not get this. Unless you keep getting them to where no one else can take it. Yeah, sure. But Assassination has a much, much better cloak in the next phase. It's better for them than anyone else, and this is worse for them than anyone else. So, easy divvying of the loot there, and this is going to be BIS for those armor pin classes until Kata, so easy enough, right? Magni's Resolution Tank Cloak, they'll upgrade it again in the next phase. Jaina's Radiance and Bolvar's Devotion. So these are interesting because they're not BIS game, but they will effectively be BIS game. And what I mean is, the 5 eye level up versions in ICC, there are exact versions of both of these. There are multiple better versions of these cloaks in the next phase. So you get the 272, you've got that for good, and then the people who never got 272 will get the 277, and you'll be able to spread the love eventually, and maybe you'll get enough 277s to eventually replace these. But for now, if people are worried, oh, I never got one of these, there's even better in the next phase. It's not that much drama. It should never be drama for these. The only thing I can say is give Bolvar's Devotion to your demo first. It's going to give your raid a massive increase. And then for this, just the caster that deserves it, right? Who's been getting unlucky? This is like a really special effort item. And so is this, honestly. And for DPS, a lot of these sim pretty similar. It's like maybe 15, 20 DPS less for this one to this one for some of the casters that see the Jaina's Radiance in their BIS setup. And this is also enhanced BIS, as weird as that is, because they're going spell enhanced more and more. So it should be a little bit less weird to hear about it because it's becoming even better for them. But anywho, these are things you have to look backwards and forwards at some of these things. Just like in the first phase, I made a loot video on Obsidian Sanctum about illustration. I said Disc Priest right away, and a lot of people thought that was crazy. And eventually, Smile, they changed their BIS list to match my video. So because it was BIS for multiple phases, so you have to think of what's BIS for multiple phases, like be smart with the loot. So that being said, let's move on to the 10-man heroic. Beasts of Northrend, Carnivorous Band, really solid strength armor pen ring, nothing to sleep on. Rod of Imprisoned Souls, I believe this is Holy BIS, because Petrified is the same eye level, but it's got hit, it's taking away some stats for hit. Now, I would say this would be more important, but you can buy Petrified Ivy Sprig if you didn't get it with Sidereal Essence. You'll get those very easily by doing the dailies. So this is still a good wand. It depends on whether or not you would rather have this than Petrified Ivy Sprig. Jaraxxus. Now, Planestalker Signet is BIS for a few people. I know for combat rogues it's BIS. It's a really good ring. Firestorm ring, basically a hit Nebula Band, really good. Amulet of Binding Elements, this is a really good like Disc Priest neck. Pretty good stuff. Faction Champs, Feral Druid BIS, Gloves of the Silver Assassin. They're going to want to do 10 man until they get these. Well, they're going to want to do it for badges too, even if they get those, huh? Twin Valkyr. The Chalice. If you don't have Cosmos, this is great. Because there weren't a lot of offhand options. And so I doubt your guild got enough Cosmos. And getting this right away, because even though there are some great 258 options, they got to drop. So you got more chances at upgrades by just getting this. Anub'Arak doesn't have anything that really stands out to me. And then the tribute chest, you have 5 more cloaks to go. Look at that. Lots more cloaks. So let's look at Oni real quick. This ring is legit good, especially for a noob tanking. So don't sleep on that. And then the helms. So the priest helms are quite good. The warrior helm is statted really nicely. And some of the pally helms are really good. So people are going to want those helms in the beginning month, the beginning part of the phase. And you're just going to want the badges from it. So you're going to be doing it anyway. So why not get, even if there's some side grades here, take a look. And, of course you want a 22 slot bag. All right. And with that, that concludes the loot guide video for this phase. I hope it was helpful. If you have any comments or ideas, anything I missed, or some cool ideas for secondary BIS options, some moving around of some items, I'd love to hear it. And yeah, with that, I shall see you on the next one.